Chief Administrative Officer is the administrative head of the municipality and council's principal advisor. They provide information and advice to council on policies, on finance, legislative requirements, plans, and more. CAOs have a number of important responsibilities under the Municipal Government Act. A list of primary responsibilities can be found in Section 93, Sub 3, and there are other duties and delegated authority for the CAO throughout the Act and regulations. CAOs are appointed by council and supervised by council, and as such, they must report to council as their primary employer. Another responsibility is to notify council if actions taken by the municipality are contrary to bylaws, resolutions, or other acts and regulations. CAOs have a duty to ensure that all meeting minutes and resolutions of council are recorded and kept in an indexed register containing certified copies of council resolutions. They must also be prepared to inform council on the operations and affairs of the municipality between and during council meetings. With respect to human resource functions, the CAO is responsible to hire, direct, and supervise employees and contractors, and they also have the authority and responsibility to discipline, suspend, or dismiss the employees that they hire. The MGA does allow the CAO to delegate some duties to employees, except you should note that they do not have the authority to delegate the power to dismiss employees. That can only be done by the Chief Administrative Officer. The CAO is responsible for the accurate keeping of records of assets and liabilities, and also ensuring that those municipal assets are maintained safely and appropriately. So this could mean having insurance on important municipal assets, or making sure that recreation facilities or playgrounds are inspected regularly and repaired when needed. The municipal CAO also has to take charge of all books, documents, and records, and has a responsibility to produce, when called upon, certain records for auditors, the minister, or council. They also must ensure that all statements and reports as required by the minister and other stakeholders are provided in a timely manner. You'll see many of the duties just mentioned in Section 93 of the Municipal Government Act. And there is a catch-all provision, in a sense, here that states the Chief Administrative Officer shall exercise the powers and carry out the duties and functions assigned to the CAO by council and by this or another act. So council may delegate specific duties to the CAO, and it's worth noting that while the CAO can delegate their powers and duties to an employee, they can only delegate powers that were delegated to them if that authorization is documented by a resolution of council. In other words, if council delegates one of their duties to the CAO can't subdelegate those duties without a formal resolution. A major part of the CAO's job in larger municipalities is managing employees. For those of you who may be listening in smaller municipalities where you're the only employee and you may be a volunteer for that matter, this section may not be as applicable to you at this time, but there's still some very important policies and HR functions that you should be aware of. The CAO should ensure that the municipality has up-to-date and applicable HR policy and procedure. So this could include important policies around pay periods and hours of work, or employee background checks and performance measurement. You'll also want to think about and understand your benefit structure for health, dental, and travel or RSP benefits being provided to your employees, and also understanding the employment standards around vacation time and statutory holidays, leaves of absence, sick time, compassionate and maternity leave are important functions for the CAO, and also important topics to have good HR policies around. Other topics that you may want to include in your policy and procedure manual include forms for confidentiality, expense claims, vacation requests, and timesheets. All of these tools and policies and guidelines help to keep you accountable to your employees and counsel, and help to keep the employees accountable to you as the employer. Included in the pre-reading for this video series was an Employment Standards Act poster, Employment Standards and You. That's a really good start to understanding the Employment Standards Act. And if you have additional questions, you really should be taking them to the Employment Standards Board with the province, and all that contact information can be found online. So if you have questions about employee discipline or entitlements and obligations, and you're not sure where to turn, you can contact the folks that administer the Employment Standards Act and enforce it and deal with complaints day to day. And this will help you to give good advice to your employees and counsel around HR issues. So then a big role for the municipal CAO is acting as principal advisor to council. This role will be explored more deeply in the Effective Meetings video series, and there we'll talk about best practices around how you advise, inform, and provide information to council members. But for the purposes of this session, we will just cover some main principles around acting as principal advisor. Council members within your municipality may not all be experts or all that familiar with the Municipal Government Act itself. They also can't be expected to know every bylaw that the municipality has passed or the terms and guidelines included in municipal policies. So it's your job as the Chief Administrative Officer to have a good handle on these authorities and help council understand and apply them. It's also your job to inform council about municipal operations and affairs. This can include administrative issues. Consider business administration or facilities management, financial management, and human resources. You'll also be advising council on information management and supplies and equipment. Executive and legislative issues or functions include helping council operate and conduct their meetings, addressing intergovernmental relations and communicating between provincial agencies, departments, and federal agencies and departments, and also executing those management functions for council. Operational issues that need to come to council from time to time can include issues associated with engineering and public works, parks management, planning and development, protection of the public and safety services, recreation and culture, social services, transportation, and more. As the CAO, you are expected to know a little bit about a lot of things, but it is not reasonable to expect that you would be an expert in all subjects. So what's important for you and for the municipal council is to recognize when the folks at the table may not have the expertise. And if you as a CAO do not have the expertise necessary to advise council on a particular matter, it's your role and your responsibility to seek some outside counsel or advice. This can mean picking up the phone and calling that Employment Standards Board, or discussing certain issues with your legal advisor or a representative at municipal affairs. It can also mean speaking to engineering or facilities management experts if you have questions or plans around infrastructure and capital projects. So take a minute and reflect on these two questions. 1, what does council need to know in certain instances? And what does council expect you to know? So this could be around an expense outside of budget, around a specific complaint, could be employee harassment, or if you're considering a need for an employee raise. When these decisions need to be made, first of all, what does council expect you to know? So what's within your own authority to deal with and may not actually need to go to council? Or what does council need to know in order to make a decision that is within their responsibility or purview? Other examples you can think about is, what if there's an opportunity to purchase or sell property? Certainly you wouldn't be making that decision as the Chief Administrative Officer, but there would be certain pieces of information that you need to collect and provide to council. And then there'd also be certain bylaws and policies in place for the municipality that would affect the decision to purchase or sell property and would need to be brought to the attention of council. Another example where there are some pieces of information that are within your authority and responsibility, and others that need to be provided to council would be around festivals and events that are being planned for the municipality. So if you have a minute, take a minute and answer the question for this particular example: expenses outside of budget. What are you providing to council? And what are you as CAO expected to know? So, pieces of information that you would be required or expected to provide to council might be copies of your current budget and information around the expected expenditure, quotes for the expense. So depending on the amount that the expense is, you may have a policy in place around obtaining multiple quotes. You likely do have or should have a purchasing and procurement policy that sets these guidelines and criteria. And you'll also be providing some information around timelines and plans for the purchase. As the CAO, on the other hand, you're expected to know what's within that procurement policy for the municipality. You'll also be expected to have a good rationale for the expenditure and have an understanding of how the expense is going to be paid for and what those terms of payment could look like. So in the example of an expense outside of budget, you would have to go to your budget and look at where could we perhaps make up for this expense on other budget lines. Is there a loan or mortgage associated with this purchase or expense, and are those terms of payment reasonable, and are we as a municipality able to meet those terms of payments? All of that type of information you'll be expected to know, and you may be questioned on these particular issues by council. So a quick note on signing authority for purchases and contracts. Within the MGA, there is a provision 156 that says all checks, electronic transfers, agreements, contracts, etc. Shall be signed or authorized by both the mayor and the CAO. But subsection 5 of this provision gives council the discretion to authorize the Chief Administrative Officer alone to sign contracts or agreements that do not exceed $25,000, and provided that the CAO tables a written summary of the nature and value of the contract or agreement at the very next council meeting. And this delegation of authority by council must be done by formal resolution. In order to inform and advise council properly and in a way that's convenient for the council members to read and understand the material behind decisions that they have to make, include preparing brief and concise memos, giving good, accurate timelines of decision making or deadlines, providing project overviews before giving all the detailed information about a particular project, having good templates and reporting structures for making financial forecasts, and providing councils with copies of contracts and quotes that they need to see and make decisions on. There's also going to be ongoing correspondence from stakeholders and residents in the community to council. So making sure that you are moving that correspondence along and making sure it's presented in a timely manner is important. When we talk about memos, the quote, "Good writing makes the reader's job easy, bad writing makes it hard," is very true. So making sure that there is a good template for a memo to council that has you as a CAO address what particular authority does this decision address or run up against. Whose jurisdiction is the decision within? Is it the jurisdiction of council and the municipality, or is it another body that council is dealing with? Is there a requirement for council to pass a bylaw to take this action, or can it be done by resolution, or is a policy more appropriate in this area? Is the request, if it is a request, a need or a want? So making sure that you've given enough background information to council about be it a proposed purchase or a repair that's required or a new hire. Is it a need or is it something that would be nice to have? And finally, addressing in the memo who is responsible for making the decision, who's responsible for implementing it, and if there is follow-up or measurement of results and impact, whose job is that? You'll also be expected to keep council informed around various types of plans. So this can mean internal planning around meeting schedules or office renovations or moves. It may look like municipal projects that impact the community. So plans for building infrastructure, the annual budget consultations, or festivals and events that are put on by the municipality. Depending on the type of activity that's going on, council will need to be informed to a certain degree, but in many cases, they will rely on you as the CAO and other staff and volunteers to actually implement plans and activities or decisions that have been approved by them. A few other tips for advising and informing council. We talked about the preparation of a brief memo and including key timelines, but you'll also want to address expenses and responsibilities for major plans and ensure that council is informed enough to make a decision, but that you're not providing them with too much information or irrelevant information that would make their analysis and consideration of the decision more difficult than it has to be. Also keep in mind that you're not asking for direction about decisions that have been delegated to you. From time to time, there may be clarification that you need to seek from council if plans change or you run into challenges that were unexpected. But by and large, if council has delegated a particular decision to you clearly by resolution, then you would be expected to carry out that action or activity on your own. Sections 109 and 123 of the Municipal Government Act are very clear that the only way council of a municipality can act or make decisions is through a bylaw or through a resolution of council. So for the CAO, keeping good, accurate records of bylaws and resolutions is extremely important. Part of your duties include having an indexed register containing certified copies of both bylaws and resolutions. Certified copies are copies that you sign and certify that they are a true and accurate copy of the originally signed bylaw or resolution, and indexed in a way that makes sense in chronological order and that is easy to access and find specific documents for residents or others who are looking for them. Consider the questions on the screen, keeping in mind that with the enactment of the MGA in 2017 came a number of mandatory bylaws. Those we will go over in the municipal law session. It's also really important to keep track and have good current policies in place for the municipality that are available to all employees. When you have the time, and it's a good idea to set aside time to do this, you'll want to take an inventory of all the bylaws that are in place, the resolutions related to the meeting minutes for the past number of years, and policies for the organization, and make sure that everything is up to date and is still working for the municipality in its current form. Finally, the Federation of PEI Municipalities has a municipal open government toolkit on their website that is useful for a number of different subject areas, policies and procedures being one of them. So make sure you hop online and check out that extremely useful tool. In terms of finance, a topic that will be discussed in further detail in the Municipal Financial Management and Municipal Law series, the CAO has a few key compliance considerations to make. This includes responsibilities for keeping accurate and complete records with respect to assets and liabilities, and providing council with accurate reports about the financial position of the municipality. This financial reporting often takes place in the form of an update from the Finance Committee at regular meetings of council. As the CAO, you want to ensure that you're providing enough information to council so that they understand what expenses have been made for the month or period prior, and how those expenses affect the current financial position of the municipality. So comparing the actual expenditures for the month to the budgeted expenses and the expenses of the year prior is a common method for doing this reporting. You'll also be responsible to make sure that all transactions that affect the financial position of the municipality are done in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for the public sector. You may be seeking some outside expertise in this area, and that's okay, but making sure that any standards and requirements that are out there around financial reporting internally and externally are met is a key accountability for the CAO. There's a helpful list of significant dates in the handbook at page 83, Appendix 4, and these dates include dates for pre-budget meetings, setting the tax rate, and submitting and passing a financial plan on an annual basis. During the Municipal Financial Management module, we'll cover details around the financial plan for both operating and capital expense and revenue, rules around deficits, asset management, municipal expenditure tools and reporting, authorization of expenditures, reserve funds, investments, grants, revenue and borrowing, financial statements, and other relevant topics. So to sum up, the responsibilities of the CAO are very broad and are quite extensive. And for this reason, it's really important that not only do you have a good grasp on the Municipal Government Act and the responsibilities within it, but that you are relatively skilled and adept in managing your time. Part of the challenge with managing all these competing priorities is managing your time as the CAO. So making sure you are focused on the duties that you are required to do, that you're removing distractions from your desk, and that you're able to adjust your day and your week for things that you didn't necessarily expect. So this is going to be your day-to-day. You'll be dealing with the monthly to-do list around operations and reporting and scheduling and preparing for council meetings. But then you'll also have residents or others that come to the office or call you with unexpected questions or issues that require immediate or relatively urgent attention. In terms of making decisions and building processes that help you structure your time, the article Time Management is More Than a Life Hack by Eric C. Deardorff suggests that you should be thinking realistically about your time by understanding it as a limited resource. So understanding how many hours you're getting paid to work, how many hours will you spend answering phone calls or replying to citizen inquiries and managing staff, and then calculating how many hours are left in the week for projects, be them internal or external projects for the municipality. You also might be having to consider how many meetings are scheduled throughout the week and how long will it take you to prepare for these meetings and debrief after these meetings take place. The second approach suggested is around designing and organizing your goals, plans, and schedules to use time effectively. So, for example, you may be using your calendar online or a hard copy agenda to block off time for designated tasks. You'd also be creating running lists of goals, tasks, and priorities within various categories of responsibility so that administrative, operational, or legislative categories, and being prepared to adjust these lists if need be or when other priorities pop up. It can be helpful to set meeting dates in your calendar in as far advance as possible or appropriate, and then block out time in advance of those meeting dates to prepare for the meeting and make sure if you're responsible for the meeting package, preparing that meeting package and getting it sent out in a timely manner. Finally, taking an approach to time management that ensures you're monitoring the use of your time while performing activities, and including making adjustments to interruptions or changing priorities. So it's important to have a realistic understanding of how long jobs are going to take you, and if they take you much longer or much shorter, that you reflect on that and remember that for next time. So these points are really just an overview of an excellent explanation and advice given in the article, so we would encourage you to read that article and take from it whatever is helpful to you in building your time management processes.